Welcome to the Life by Design podcast, where Jessilyn and Brian Pearson, struggling to align your financial goals or confidently invest in real estate as a couple?
That's why we created this podcast and the Riches, Relationships, and Real Estate program to help you build wealth and strengthen your relationship. Visit weekendwealth.ca to take our quiz and discover your real estate investor type. Let's create the life you deserve together.
Real estate investing isn't just about ROI. It's about being ready for life's plot twists. Today, we're talking about how couples can design investment plans that stand strong through illness, job loss, kids, relocations, and everything in between.
And to start off, we'll start with our own personal story about how real estate supported us through some ups and some downs in our life. It started with Jess being burnt out in 2019. And we ended up pivoting our career, our lives, and a number of other things. And actually, the world ended up pivoting shortly after that as well with the pandemic. And real estate was there throughout all of that to support us. And we ended up going through 2020 and 2021 and somewhat rebuilding ourselves. And we couldn't have done it without real estate behind us, because real estate effectively paid the bills throughout 2020 and 2021. And allowed us to really recreate who we are.
Yeah. I was out of a job come, I think, mid-October 2019. And then you gave your notice, 3 days shy of the world shutting down? Which we didn't plan for in terms of the pandemic. No. We didn't anticipate that.
How do you not anticipate a pandemic coming? We didn't really watch the news. That was the right one.
It's really true. We thought it was a bit of a joke.
Yeah.
What people were doing with toilet paper, I should be very specific, not the pandemic itself. But that, and so then you gave your notice, and 3 days later, everything shut down, and we're like, okay, here we are. And while we were building a business with some of our partners, made it much harder because we were online as opposed to the events that we were supposed to be doing and all the in-person activities. And then, of course, when you start any business, you don't usually make a lot of income off the hop. So our real estate supported us to start building that and figuring out, okay, what does this look like and what does it mean for our family?
Yeah, and we did a lot of personal development in that time too. So we both had the time freedom of no 9-to-5 job anymore, and we could build the business and take any extra time left over to build ourselves too. So there was a lot of building in general across many, many different things. And that included the business and ourselves. So without real estate to help us and support us and kind of carry us through that period, we really would not have been able to do that. And it might have looked like a totally different picture over those 2 years.
Oh, it absolutely would have. We would have had to find a job, one of us, if not both of us. But yeah, so rolling into our first takeaway here is, I think, financial fortitude, building safety nets into your investment plan. And I know we had that, maintaining emergency reserves specifically for, we could say property expenses, which is an automatic for us, but then there's things that you can't predict, like job loss, which we've had, pandemic, which we've all had, illnesses, which I've had, right? These things that you don't know they're coming, but they come, and then it's like, what do you do?
Yeah, and I always look back at real estate and go, like, real estate really didn't pay us enough over the years. And then I look at like the accounts and how much financial fortitude there is inside of the real estate. And I realize that it just looks like we're broke on paper. We're really not broke. Like when you add up all the dollars, and that financial fortitude is what keeps us, sleeping well at night today, and it's what carried us through the 2020 period when we needed to rebuild ourselves and we needed to pivot into that new career and that new business building opportunity.
Yeah. And I mean, when we talk about emergency reserves, obviously there are options. There's straight out cash. And then there's the HELOC, right? The home equity line of credit, which we relied on through the pandemic. And we have it on multiple properties, just because that's how we qualified. And of course, they all have their benefits and disadvantages, but it worked in our favor in a time of need. And now, of course, we have them and we utilize them to buy more investments. So a little bit of a different strategy, but it's still part of our strategy. And we still have HELOCs, which we will always have. Whether we're carrying a balance or something is different, but we'll always have them because we know we can rely on them in need.
Yeah, there's two ways to think about HELOCs when it comes to your financial fortitude. A lot of people say, save 3 months of income. If anything goes wrong, then you have that 3 months of income and it's sitting in a bank account somewhere. We like to sort of supercharge that what would normally be savings, and we actually put it into our HELOC or effectively against our mortgage. So instead of having, let's just come up with a round number, $10,000 sitting to the side in case of, an emergency fund, we have $10,000 sitting on a HELOC where we put more and more money against that, and that ends up paying down the mortgage as well, saving us interest, but also creates that balance for a fund. The disadvantage to it is that you have to be very careful not to spend it, and as we know, a lot of the world is and people in the world are in greatly higher levels of debt than it was 10 years or 20 years ago, and that can be a danger for a lot of people. So you gotta account for your personality. What's my personality? Do I need the cash, or can I be responsible enough to have a large credit line as my rainy day or my emergency fund?
Yeah, and that's a lot to do also with risk tolerance, which you want to know between you and your partner, because one of you might be comfortable with debt and one of you may not. And if you're not aligned, it could be detrimental.
Yep. Yep. And then on top of that, we also have insurance for many, many different things, just to make sure that neither one of us nor our kids are hard done by. So we have a few different types of life insurance. We have disability and critical illness. We have even going all the way down to our tenant level. We have our tenants carry insurance as well, because that way the bill is not on us in order to deal with a flood in a basement or something like that. If it's the tenant's fault, then the tenant's insurance can take care of that.
Absolutely. And then running what if scenarios. So, for example, if a partner loses income for 6 months, and I think that this is a great one. I know, so back in April 2024, your contract ended, the one that you had. But I think we knew it was coming to an end. It was a set timeline, and I still had mine. And so we ran different situations, like if you had a full-time contract versus if I did. Could we put you a part-time contract? I keep a full-time. And then what would that look like? And how much time would that give you to build up our business? I mean, that's the one we ended up running with, and it worked out for us. But we ran multiple scenarios before we actually made a decision on what worked best for us as a family.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it goes back to personality, and even more so the personality between you and your partner. Are your plans going to jive with your partner? Are they going to jive with you? You really got to think it out holistically. You can't think it out as in, what would I do?
Yeah. So, second takeaway is design a portfolio that can pivot. So you want to be agile. We diversify, and I think we've talked about this. Well, of course, we have a love for real estate. We have diversified in what type of real estate, as well as REITs.
Yep.
And investments like that, where there are different investment levels. There's different lengths. There's different rules around how liquid it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, diversification is honestly one of my core pillars of investing. It's pretty well the first thing I talk about with my clients, and it's the first thing I think about when it comes to our investments. How well can we diversify, both with how illiquid or liquid our investments are? Also, what are those investments? Are they public investments? Are they private investments? Are they investments under our control, like real estate? Are they investments under somebody else's control, like a joint venture? We kind of spread it out a fair bit so that we are never suffering in any one sector of our investment. But I would say that the large majority of our investments are in real estate, where it's under our control and we can understand what is going on in our own personal portfolio. As Warren Buffett says, put your eggs in one basket and watch that basket very, very carefully. That's kind of our methodology as well.
Right, right. And then also like in designing your portfolio, you want to have a location strategy, right? Investing in markets with not just strong rental demand and high influx of people, but economic diversity. And I know we hit a really big, I don't know if a windfall is the right word here in Alberta over the last year or two, where we've had that, I think 200,000 over 200,000 people
Yeah.
migrate into Alberta in the last year, which of course is great for
To,
rentals.
yeah, and to qualify that into terms of percentage, that's a 4% population increase per year, which is insane. Year after year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So for us, Alberta was a great place. We also happen to be investing here, but that wasn't the end all be all of it either. We've also put money into very, very different things like REITs, where the real estate is across the country and across potentially even the United States and other parts of the world. So if you actually added up sort of the number of places and the number of different things that we've invested into, it would be a little bit staggering, actually, the diversity of what we've invested into. And sometimes it is just simply what you're investing into. So like a REIT can, check off 10 boxes with a single share if you want to really diversify your investments in that way.
Yeah. And I know we look at, when we say location strategy, economic diversity. So here where we live is heavy, 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 heavy government. I mean, yes, we have oil as well, but government specific, which we know there will always be jobs. So there's always people coming in. There's always going to be income. It supports the strategy of what we're doing with buy and holds.
Yeah. And if you're new into real estate and you want to take a lesson from us, which we've already learned that lesson from, buy your real estate investment far enough away that you cannot manage it. That came from a mentor of mine, Alfonso Quadra from the Wealth Genius Group. And that's one of the things that he says. And the reason is because if you can't manage it, it forces you to run your real estate like a business. And there are parts of our real estate portfolio which are a little too close to home. And I actually still do manage simply because I cannot wrap my head around paying that amount of money for property management when they're literally 5 or 10 minutes away. So, manage some stuff if you want to, but realize that one day you're going to have to turn that real estate investment into a business, and it might be better for you to just have it far enough away that you're forced into making it a business right from day one.
Yeah, I know that's some great advice. I know I've heard many people talk about how they manage their own properties. And then you start to hear their stories of how they haven't increased rent in 5 years, or they've got tenants that they just want to be nice. And I'm like, oh, but nice isn't business.
Yeah. And to be clear, the properties that are close enough for me to manage, I do run them like a business.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, they very much are. It's just I happen to have to drive to them every once in a while, and usually it's to meet a contractor to facilitate some service that needs to go on. But the rents are raised appropriately, and I outsource everything. I don't fix toilets or anything like that anymore. And for those of you, again, starting out, fixing toilets, even if you got the skills, it just might not be worth your time. You really, really want to consider whether or not you should be doing that, or you should be hiring that service out. If you can't hire that service out, did you buy the right property and did you buy the right deal? That's the next question I would ask.
Absolutely. And then last, we want to roll into partnerships in practice. So your partner, your husband, your wife, whatever that looks like, communication and having a long-term strategy. I know we've spoken on several different podcast episodes about communication because it's so key. It's probably critical across everything here. But you want to treat real estate as a shared life strategy, not just an investment. And you want to be on the same page about investing. And I know when we first started dating back in the day, we were definitely on the same page for investing in real estate, but we're on the same page for the same plan. And we didn't realize it, of course, until like, I don't know how many years later, 8, 9. But slowly over time, we realized that we weren't on the same plan, and we got on the same page when it came to investing in real estate. And now we have these wonderful lofty goals and milestones we've reached. But when there's individuals who, or couples, I should say, who aren't on the same page, we've watched several of our business partners and our friends who one is hardcore believer and investor in real estate, and then their partner wants nothing to do with it.
Yeah, yeah, and we try to help those people out. In fact, I would say that, previous to our actual business, we were investing in real estate and we were figuring out how we operated together. And the way that we operated together and the way that we communicated and the way that we got onto the same page together was really the genesis of our business itself,
Yeah.
where we actually started to invite other people into our real estate investments, and we started to work with other people through coaching or through investments to actually build their wealth and their future for that couple as well. And it really came down to, us knowing that, hey, we managed to get through all of this. We managed to put pretty solid structure together under us. I wonder if we can replicate that for others. And then the actual business was sort of born out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we schedule, and we always recommend this to all our clients, scheduling check-ins, whether they're quarterly or annually. I know we love real estate and business, so we talk about it more than quarterly. We probably talk about it every week or two. But we definitely meet yearly to go through our plans and our goals and what does that look like and what are we looking to achieve and did we reach our goals from the previous year, that kind of a thing. And we spend quite a few hours. People might be surprised. Like, we don't just sit down for 30 minutes on our annual one. I mean, weekly, yeah, it might be 15, 20-minute conversation. But on an annual basis, we're probably 2, 3, sometimes 5 hours, and not always on the same day. We break it up depending on what we want to achieve and how we want to break that down.
Yeah, all said and done, I would say we're somewhere between 6 and 8 hours of yearly planning for the year.
Yeah.
But too many people set yearly goals and they don't actually review them or really think about them after they set them, and that's a danger for you in your future. Because you have to set those yearly goals, then you have to break them down into quarterly goals, and then you, just like we do, you need to review that every week. So whether you actually pull out your goals every week or not, you still need to be in conversation every week and figuring out whether or not you're even moving forward. Never mind, like, are you moving forward to your goals? Because life gets in the way and you will drift away from your goals and even away from any action if you don't sit down with your partner and talk pretty well on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and you also want to know, like, if you've achieved your goals and if you didn't, why. And it's not necessarily why as in a failure. It might be why as in 6 months into the year, your guys' direction shifted and it wasn't as much of a priority. And then you want to evaluate, is it a priority now? And maybe that's just something you chalk up to say, hey, this is not where we want to go. And I mean, life happens and it changes us. And we shift our goals according to our plans each year. When we know year over year, it's not going to be consistently the same. I mean, we have a strategy that we follow and where we want to get to, but there's times things come in and we're just like, I just don't want to do that anymore. And you realize there's other things you want to do in life that you could utilize that same time for.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it can be intimidating to take that amount of time on a weekly, quarterly, and yearly basis to just plan all that out and just to even find time to sit down and have those conversations. But the difference in your future wealth and in your relationship itself is going to be night and day. If you can not if you can find the time, but if you intentionally set the time aside to have those conversations, you will notice a drastic difference in your life and in your relationship.
Yeah, and I know we're talking here about your real estate investment plan, but when you're sitting down to do your annual review and setting your goals, because we're coming up here to the end of the year, you want to make sure you have defined your individual and shared goals. And that could be for yourself, your income, your lifestyle, your legacy. So we have a real estate goal that's joint and legacy. Our legacy is obviously the same for, well, our kiddos and future, whatever that looks like for them. But we also have independent goals, right? And I know over the last probably month-ish, I started to evaluate what I'm working on, what plan you're working on, what space that takes for me. And so what what can I include in 2026 or not? What do I need to remove and what can I include? And then I started booking either sessions with a coach or training or whatever it was that I wanted, how I want to grow in 2026.
Yeah. We're diverse, right? There's the me who is just me inside of my own head. There's the me that is interacting with my wife. There's the me that's interacting with the family and with friends and career and my own pursuits. You got to take all of that into account in order to properly set your goals. You can't just say, what are our goals, and then have it end at that, because you'll find yourself somewhat trapped and maybe even limited or not living up to your potential if you only set goals for the couple. So set all the different goals for yourself, for your couple, for your family, for your business, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, and make sure your voice is heard and that you're hearing your partner's voice as well. And then you want to make sure you recognize when to bring in outside help, because you know what? Sitting down and having these conversations sounds great, but we understand that sometimes disagreements happen and not everyone knows how to navigate those. And that's where we've learned, but we've trained how to work through it ourselves. But part of that training and learning was bringing in outside help, whether that's financial advisor, therapist, coach, that looks different to everyone. And I know we've shared multiple times over the last couple of years in our podcast where uh, you were done with buying more properties and I wasn't. And I didn't know how to bring this big, audacious idea from my head to yours. So I just booked you into the Real Estate Investment Network. And that shifted your thought process and made a huge shift for our family and our real estate and our legacy. But I had to bring in that help and you had to go to it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Yeah. And too often we treat ourselves as an island. I recently had a conversation with a good friend of mine, and he, a while back, he went through a breakup. And then over the last couple of months, he went through some pretty hard times with family and a friend. And he got into an accident himself on his motorbike. And I never heard anything about it. And I sat down with him just not too long ago, and I said, hey, you have people around you that can support you and help you. And his thought process was like, I never even thought to like ask anybody about it. And I think that's too often how relationships work and how we just individually work. We don't think to ask our partner. We don't think to ask our friends,
Yeah.
family for support. And sometimes it is up to the partner or the family to help out with that support. In the case that we're talking about here, it's kind of a rule, like to suggest other methods of going about finding that information or finding that support or motivation that the other person needs, instead of like having them come to terms with what they need. And eventually you're just hoping that they come to terms and they figure out what they actually need for their own life.
Yeah, there's a lot of times I think we're get stuck in our own head and we're like, well, I don't want to bother you. I don't want to bother my friend. They're too busy. They got so much going on. But I promise you, your loved ones want to help you. They just don't always know you need it.
You got more people around you than you think, for sure.
Yeah, so let's roll into our takeaways from what we discussed today. So I'd say building safety nets into the plan, because those what ifs, those curveballs, those life moments, they happen unexpectedly. And if they happen and you're not prepared, it's a lot harder to deal with.
Yeah. My takeaway is be in communication. Be in communication with yourself, your partner, your family, your friends, everybody around you. Because the more you're communicating about your wealth plans, about like how you can, the what if scenarios we were talking about, how you can survive a potential disaster in your own life. If you're not talking about that, then you're not going to be prepared for that.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Listen for more real estate investing stories in the next episode of the Life by Design podcast.
Before you go, don't forget to visit weekendwealth.ca to take our quiz and discover what type of real estate investor you are. We release new episodes every 2 weeks, so be sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Thank you for joining us on this journey to create your life by design.
Thanks again for listening. It's been a pleasure being with you today.